Hi guys, Julia here from JM Squared Vintage. Welcome back to the channel. I am here today with something a little bit different. So today we are going to be talking all about Lagenlook, what it is, how to spot it, some of my favorite brands, and why it is a reseller's best friend. But before we get started here, guys, if this is your first time here, if this is your first time stumbling on my channel, first and foremost, welcome. I am Julia. That is my name. We talk all things thrifting and vintage and the business of reselling on the internet here. If that sounds like something that you might be into, consider hitting subscribe down below. I would love to have you along on this journey. But without further ado, guys, we've got a lot to talk about. We're losing light here. So why don't you go grab your notebook, grab yourself a snack, grab yourself a drink. You know I've got my matcha latte, and today it's warm because it is rainy and chilly and gross outside. So sit back, relax, and let's get into Lagenlook. Before we get back to the video, I want to take a quick minute to thank Vendu for sponsoring this video. My main goal here on YouTube is to help you guys optimize your reselling business. And if I'm being totally honest, the number one way to maximize your profits is getting your items in front of as many eyeballs as humanly possible. And the best way to do that is through cross-listing. And a lot of people are, rightfully so, a little bit intimidated about cross-listing. It can get very messy. Having individual inventories in different marketplaces can be very, very unwieldy. But using a cross-lister like Vendu completely demystifies and streamlines that process for you. With just a few additional clicks, and I truly mean just a few additional clicks, you can take your listings and cross-list them onto any marketplace that Vendu works with. And they work with pretty much every marketplace you want to be on. Shopify, eBay, Depop, Mercari, Vinted, Etsy, Whatnot, Vestiaire, Grailed. And you can bet if there's a new big marketplace that pops up, they'll be working with them too. It takes what would be a 10 to 15 minute task, listing one item on multiple different platforms, down to about 2 minutes. I've timed this because I'm a nerd like that. But they also have features that take the busy work of reselling off of your plate. They do marketplace sharing. They also have an offers to likers tool. And they make it easy to manage your inventory in one central location instead of having all of these independent inventories in multiple different places. So guys, I could not run my business without Vendu. It is literally the foundation on which my entire business is built. I've been using Vendu since basically the beginning of my reselling journey, and I could not do what I do without it. So if you want to give Vendu a try, click the link in the description down below and take 25% off of your first month. And if you love Vendu, be sure to sign up for their annual plan because you'll get up to 2 months for free. And like, who doesn't love free? So give it a try, guys. I absolutely love Vendu, and I know you will too. I've said it before and I've said it again. You'll wonder why you haven't done it sooner. Now, back to the video. So let's start at the very beginning. If you are brand new to reselling, you've never heard this term before, what is Lagenlook? Lagenlook is a German word, and the literal translation of Lagenlook is layered look. So when you think of Lagenlook, this is kind of the look that should pop right into your head. Think oversized silhouettes, lots of layers, lots of natural fibers, really centering around linen. The reason I love Lagenlook, and there are several other things that are kind of in the same vein as Lagenlook, the thing that's so great about Lagenlook is that this is a lifestyle. This is not a trend. This is generally not something that people come in and out of. This is like a way of life, more or less. And these wardrobes are curated over a lifetime. Pieces are collected and worn for years and years and years and years. And you'll notice as we go through all the different brands, even though the different brands have very different aesthetics, pretty much all of these brands will work with pieces from other brands that we're going to talk about in this Lagenlook world. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. But if you are like a hobby reseller, this is a side hustle, maybe you don't have the time or the bandwidth to keep your finger on the pulse of what's trending right now, chasing after something like a Lagenlook is such a safe bet because, again, it's not something that's going to ebb and flow really with time. There will be times when Lagenlook is more popular than others, but there is just always going to be a baseline level of pretty high demand on these items. I want you to visualize the coolest art teacher you ever had in your entire life, and let's get into the ways to spot Lagenlook while you are outsourcing. So the number one thing that's going to make a piece kind of stand out as a Lagenlook piece is the silhouette. And there's a lot of different kinds of silhouettes, but some of the core design motifs that you're going to see really commonly throughout all of the brands in this world are like a cocoon silhouette. And a cocoon silhouette is if you were to take like an A-line skirt and kind of taper it in the bottom, kind of like this. It's going to have that like curved look. Like if you see the barrel leg jeans that have been so popular over the last couple years, that's really a silhouette that's been borrowed from the Lagenlook world. So like barrel leg jeans are effectively like a cocoon shaped pant. So you can see that cocoon shape in shirts, you can see it in skirts, you can see it in dresses, you can see it in pants. But that kind of low taper in is a telltale sign that something can be used in a Lagenlook wardrobe. Another very common silhouette that you see is like an apron front. So with a dress, think like overalls or an apron style front to a dress. A lot of the inspiration for a lot of these pieces comes from like female workwear of yore. You'll see again that like kind of bib front or overall front, oversized chunky pockets, really things that kind of scream utilitarian, right? While the men have like the Carhartt workwear aesthetic, this is in kind of a funny way the women's equivalent of workwear. Another thing that you're going to see quite a bit is free sizing. A lot of Lagenlook pieces tend to be like intentionally shapeless, intentionally oversized. So you'll see a lot of things that maybe come in size like 1, 2, and 3, or they'll be completely free sized where they'll fit a broad swath of sizes. These are just some little design clues that can tip you into the piece that you're holding being applicable in a Lagenlook style wardrobe. And I do want to be clear that this list is by absolutely positively no means exhaustive. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of designers that do this kind of stuff. And there are designers that will do some pieces that can fit into the stuff. I'll talk about that a little bit later on. While you should absolutely be looking for the brands that I'm going to talk about today, use these clues to see other brands that maybe I've never heard of. Maybe they don't even have a brand in them at all. If it's a piece that fits in with a Lagenlook wardrobe, it doesn't matter if there's a brand. It will sell as long as you keyword it right. Now, once you have an idea of the silhouette, the next thing that's going to tip you off is the textile. And the big elephant in the room in Lagenlook is linen. Linen is really the core, the backbone, the spine of the textile choices in Lagenlook. But you'll also see a lot of these brands using cottons and wools and silks, most of them being natural fibers. But you will see some that are using things like printed mesh, like a polyester mesh. You'll see some that are using like a viscose organza. So you'll have these kind of textural moments, but usually when you see something like this, you're going to see the silhouette, and the silhouette will be like the telltale sign that this is a Lagenlook piece. So now that you know a little bit about what Lagenlook is, what the silhouettes are to look for, and what kind of textiles to look for, let's get into some killer Lagenlook brands to keep your eyes out for while you are outsourcing. All right, the first brand we are going to dive into here is Ivy Abbott's. Ivy Abbott's is a husband and wife team. They're based out of New York, and they make the most beautiful, one-of-a-kind garments. And like so many of the brands that we're going to talk about, and so many brands in the Lagenlook world at large, their focus is really on ethically and sustainable sourcing, hand making, really making these kind of like heirloom quality garments that again are meant to be collected over a lifetime and mixed and matched over decades. One of the things that Ivy Abbott's does that I think is really cool is that they have a couple different sizes, and the sizes and silhouettes are meant to be tailored to you once on bodies. So you'll find in some Ivy Abbott's pieces, you'll find like little tabs that can help you like cinch in a waist, or something that can kind of pinch a garment in at a certain place to make it not only fit right to your body, but also make it a completely unique garment. They also do bespoke work, so keep your eyes out. There's the Ivy Abbott's tag, and then there's the Ivy Abbott's bespoke tag. And if you get your hands on one of those, you know that that garment was made specifically for the person who bought it, and there's not another one in the world, which is truly something to say in this day and age, with mass consumerism kind of taking over the world. Another thing that you'll see on Ivy Abbott's pieces is really unique buttons. One of the things that they do a lot of is they use vintage buttons from collections that they purchase. I mean, everybody's grandmother, everybody's mother, most of us have a tin of buttons. I never liked those cookies, so jingle jangle it is. So I think that that's a really fun and beautiful detail to have on a garment. Anyway, if and when you spot one of these, in terms of retail value, Ivy Abbott's pieces start at about $250, and then you're going to go up to like $600, $700, $800, $900 for the dresses. And on the resale market, pretty much anything that's out there is going to start at about $100 resale value. You'll probably see closer to $200, $300 for dresses. So this is a very, very serious bolo that has a very serious buyer pool, that has very serious money that can spend this kind of money on garments. Again, they're not buying this for a season or two. They're buying this for the rest of their life. Gorgeous stuff. If you can find it, grab it. If you've ever found a piece, please let me know what it was in the comments, because I just need to know. All right, the next brand we're going to talk about, this one's a little bit more in the bread and butter territory, is Cut Loose. Now, I like to consider Cut Loose like a California minimalist Lagenlook brand. They're much more simplistic than the Ivy Abbott's pieces, lots more like true casual wear. Well, in something like an Ivy Abbott's or some of these other brands that we're going to talk about, most of the fabrics are going to be non-stretch. It's going to be that linen. Cut Loose does quite a bit of knitwear, but the knitwear is usually going to be linen. It's going to have kind of a unique silhouette. It's made right here in California. I think they're up in the Bay Area. And again, you're going to spot this from their textiles. Their linen jersey, once you have your hands on it, is pretty distinct. But for this, you're going to see a lot more like clean lines. It's a little bit more unfussy and a little bit less whimsical than something like an Ivy Abbott's. Something that you can easily make a great casual capsule wardrobe out of. But I will pick up any piece that I see. I will even comfortably pay up for it. Even the t-shirts, I've had a ton of the t-shirts come through my hands. The t-shirts will pretty comfortably go $20, $25, usually very, very quickly. And more significant pieces you'll see hit like the $50, $60, $70 range. In terms of retail price, this is more in the like t-shirts are about $50. So expensive, but not crazy expensive. You know, Ivy Abbott's is very expensive. We're going to get into some other brands that are extremely expensive. Cut Loose is more in that moderate territory, but it is definitely not a brand that you should be leaving behind when you're outsourcing. Again, comfortably pay up for it. It's something that will be in and out of your closet super quickly. This is one of those brands that is a little bit more widespread. Cut Loose is sold in boutiques everywhere, and it has a following that extends beyond people who dress in a Lagenlook style because they are so casual. You can easily wear one of those t-shirts with a regular pair of jeans, which most Lagenlook folks would not touch. So keep your eyes out for Cut Loose. Again, one of those brands that you'll probably find most places in this country, more towards bread and butter resale prices, but definitely great quality and definitely something that's got a good amount of demand behind it. So the next brand we are going to talk about, and I am just apologizing in advance because I'm sure that I am going to butcher this name, but we are going to be talking about Gudrun Schuden. I haven't looked up how to pronounce that, and I'm still not even close to being positive. Anyway, they are based out of Sweden, and they have this very distinct, like, Scandinavian whimsy about them. You think about how, like, IKEA in some of their design elements, and I mean, like, we're not comparing apples to oranges here, but they are from the same country. And they have a similar amount of tongue in cheek to them, right? So where a lot of Lagenlook brands and a lot of Lagenlook pieces are going to be very muted. Lots of blacks, lots of browns, lots of taupes, lots of greens, lots of kind of like colors found in nature. Gudrun Schuden is all about prints and whimsy. And this in particular is why they are so collectible. Like, there are people that absolutely positively love their stuff, and this is what they wear. So you're gonna see something like this that has that classic Lagenlook silhouette to it, right? You've got that apron style tunic, you've got the big chunky pockets, you've got the kind of volume on volume layering that's going on there, but this is all done in candy colors. Same over here. This to me is just absolute peak art teacher, which by the way is a keyword that I use all the time for stuff like this. But they, like so many other brands, they do a lot of linens, they do a lot of those real signature Lagenlook silhouettes, but they are doing that with their tongue firmly planted in cheek. This is one of the more popular brands in this world, so it is for sure a brand that you should be picking up, you should be comfortable paying up for. In terms of resale value, you're gonna see things starting at maybe like $35 for the most insignificant piece, like a cotton t-shirt. And once you get into the linen pieces, you're looking more at like $50 to $60 and up. You'll certainly see pieces that'll go well into the $100. So absolutely, positively, a Lagenlook brand to keep your eyes out for. Next up, we are going to talk about Magnolia Pearl. Now, Magnolia Pearl is a brand that takes like Lagenlook silhouettes and takes them all the way to the maximalist extreme. So where Gudrun is all about that like Scandinavian whimsy, there's still a real component of minimalism to Scandinavian whimsy. And then you get to Magnolia Pearl, and Magnolia Pearl takes it to maximalism, gilds the lily, and then paints it a little bit more, and then maybe throws a few rhinestones on it, right? Like it is so over the top, and it just has a hardcore cult following, and the prices reflect that. So you see something like these shorts, pants, capris, I don't know what you want to call them, but they have that kind of Lagenlook, like barreled out, almost cocoon silhouette, which is in and of itself a very Lagenlook feel. And then you just have this over the top embroidery, embellishment. I'm sure there's some hand painting on here. Like this is just like maximalist overkill almost. To be totally honest, 8-year-old Julia would have been all over this. So you'll see like a lot of mixed and matched prints. You'll see a lot of like raw edges. And I think to the untrained eye, if you were to see something like this in the bins or in a thrift store, if you don't know what you're looking at, I think easily somebody would go right past it thinking that this is like a destroyed garment. When in reality, you're going to get hundreds of dollars for something like this. I know I once found a t-shirt that was on the throwback pile at the bins because it was really distressed. It had holes all over it, but that's how it came, and it sold overnight for like $110. This is the kind of thing that once you know what you're looking for, it will jump out at you. So if you are unfamiliar with the brand, if you are unfamiliar with what their pieces look like, take a little time and look at their website and kind of see what they do and how they do it. It should be very, very distinctive, pretty easy for you to spot. In terms of retail and resale on these are of course handmade, they're limited editions. A lot of these things are one of a kind. So your resale value is generally going to be at retail value and sometimes higher than retail value, depending on what you've got. So you're going to see like socks will sell for $40. T-shirts, again, you're going to see between like $90 and $120. And in terms of dresses, you're going to see $200 really at the bare minimum. More likely you're going to see $400, $500, $600. So yeah, it's safe to say that Magnolia Pearl is a real bolo. So keep your eyes out for it. And like I said, if you are unfamiliar with it, go on their website and really kind of drink in what it is they do. It's very, very unique because once you know what they do and how they do it, it's going to be real easy to spot those pieces. All right, next up, we're going to take a hard left turn to Black Crane. As over the top and maximalist as Magnolia Pearl is, Black Crane is minimal. The founders of Black Crane are both from Tokyo, so they've taken a lot of inspiration from the Japanese minimalist look. Think like Japanese mode fashion, Issey Miyake, Yohji Yamamoto. So what you're seeing with Black Crane, again, is that real exceptional quality of textile and construction, but done in a very minimalist way with always a little bit of interest, right? So either it's going to be like that intentional shapelessness. It's going to be an interesting play of volume on the sleeves like this sweatshirt. It's going to be a decorative ruche in an interesting place that kind of changes the entire dynamic of a dress like this one. This is a highly sought after brand. Again, most of the stuff is going to be black or gray. I can't recall ever seeing something that isn't like black, gray, or tan from them. That's just kind of their vibe. But the tag is very unassuming. So you want to make sure that you're keeping your eyes out for this brand. You know, these pieces are limited, they're cut to order, but due to that, their pieces have a baseline high demand with some pieces having a very high demand. Now, in terms of retail price for dresses, you're going to see them start at about like $200, $250, and they'll go up to like $300, $350. And on the resale market, you're going to see prices starting at about like $45, $50 for tops. And then for dresses, you're going to see somewhere between $75 and $100 for most dresses, with some going into like the $150, $180 range. So definitely a bolo, something that if you find a piece, it'll be in and out of your hands fast. It may or may not be coming to my house because this is very much my flavor, but a great brand and definitely one to keep your eyes out for. Next up, we're going to talk about Bluefish, and a moment of silence for Bluefish because it is no longer in business. That being said, with the fact that it is no longer in business, that actually drives demand up. These pieces are all like handmade, hand painted, and each one is unique, and there is a very hot collector's market for them. Most of the pieces that I've ever had come through my hands are like a heavyweight jersey, really beautiful quality, very, very oversized. Again, that kind of free sizing. Although if memory serves me right, they do actually have sizes on them, but I can't imagine the sizes really having much bearing on the actual fit because they do tend to be very, very, very oversized. But Jennifer Barclay, who was the owner of Bluefish, up and moved herself over to Assisi in Italy, and good on her. And she has said that she has maintained relationships with her artisans, so there might be some very, very, very limited drops in the future. But for now, keep your eyes out for these pieces. They, again, are going to be something that for the untrained eye, they're going to look like a piece of clothing that a kid painted on, right? But that is what makes these things so charming. A lot of times the artist that painted the garments that you have will actually sign it somewhere. I had one that was signed on like the inside of the garment, but these started in high demand when Bluefish was around because they are all one of a kind. And once she closed up shop, I've watched the demand kind of incrementally tick up a little bit. You know, every day one of those pieces somehow gets destroyed. It gets stuck in a washer, it gets ripped, it gets, whatever. And that's one less that will ever exist. Add to the fact that every single piece that she's ever made has been one of a kind, hand painted, etc. Like this is a high demand situation. So absolutely positively keep your eyes out for that label because people absolutely love it. And again, if you don't know what you're looking for, this is an easy thing to go right past. Obviously, you can't buy anything retail anymore, but in terms of resale value, you'll see prices at like the low end of $50 for the most insignificant pieces, and they'll go up to the $200 mark and up, depending on what you've got. The last couple things that I've sold from Bluefish, I think went for like $110 and $140 respectively. And again, sold super duper quickly. So for sure, a brand you should keep your eyes out for. Next up, we're going to talk about Toast. So Toast is a Welsh company, and I like to think about Toast as like a starter Lagenlook brand. And I don't mean that in the sense that these are inexpensive pieces. I just mean this in the sense that they're more easy wearing. It's not as over-the-top shapeless as some other pieces, but it still has the Lagenlook sentiment to it, right? Again, extremely high-quality pieces, looser fits, lots of linen, that like signature kind of workwear aesthetic to it, the smock tops, the apron dresses, etc. But this does tend to be a little bit more streamlined and minimalist, not quite what we see with Black Crane, which is very like harsh in terms of its minimalism. Maybe simplistic is the better word for it, a little bit more simplistic than minimalist. But Toast is also known for a lot of like housewares and linens and stuff like that, so it's a brand to keep your eyes out for kind of across the board. I find that Toast does a little bit more in like alternate fabrics. And by alternate fabrics, I'm not talking like not good fabrics. I'm talking they'll do like a little bit more corduroy, a little bit more velvet. But again, in that kind of simplistic, layerable, slightly oversized fit. Now, in terms of retail price, for like shirts, you'll see shirts start at about $150 and they'll go up. Dresses, you're going to see probably about $300 and up on their retail prices. And in terms of resale value, you're going to see resale start at about $50 and it'll go up to like kind of $80 to $150 on the dresses. So again, another brand that'll sell super quick, has a cult following, beautifully made stuff, and sells for an excellent price. Next up, we're going to talk about Not Perfect Linen. And as you can imagine, most of the pieces from Not Perfect Linen are linen. And really, they got their name from the imperfection of linen. Like linen in and of itself as a fiber is kind of rougher, and even the finest linen has like slubs to the threads. That's what gives linen that slightly like rougher hand feel. And that's really what they've leaned into with their designs. Similar to Toast, they're a little bit more simplistic. They're a little bit more like clean lines, really like unfussy stuff. This is again like your starter Lagenlook where color. You're not all the way into like Magnolia Pearl style where you're wearing like 87 garments at once. This is where you start with your one-piece wonder loose and breezy dress like this one. But again, even though it's simplistic, even though the pieces are a little bit more simple, they have high demand, they command a good price. Retail on their dresses is between like $100 and $200, and in terms of resale, you're going to be seeing pretty much between like $30 for a shirt up to about $70 for a dress. And some will sell a little bit higher than that depending on the size and the color and all that kind of stuff. But a great brand, an easy to spot label, and definitely not one to pass up if you see it while you're outsourcing. Next up, we're going to talk about a brand that I think you'll see in most thrift stores across this country, and that's flax. Now, there's two different flax tags, and the tags are super similar, but one tag is more desirable than the other. So there's flax and regular flax, and then there's flax by Jeannie Engelhardt. I think it's Jeannie. And the older stuff with her name on it is always going to command a higher price. It's more in demand than the newer stuff, but make no mistake about it, there's still high demand for both. Again, given the name, as you can imagine, most of the stuff that comes from flax is linen. You'll see some linen cotton blends. You'll see some other like textural pieces. This dress that I had almost felt like burlap. It was like a really chunky, loose knit linen. It was really cool and had such a cool drape to it. But the flax stuff tends to be very like core Lagenlook. Again, those oversized dresses, the cocoon silhouettes, the kind of drapey arms, and people absolutely love it. Now, this is a little bit more in the bread and butter territory when it comes to Lagenlook pieces, and you'll see generally between $30 and $50 on most pieces. Certain dresses like this one I had sold for $65, but it is almost always guaranteed a very quick sale. Like, people just love it. Again, it's one of those brands that has a lot of brand recognition, and because of that, demand for it is quite high because it's a brand that people know and people seek out. So definitely one not to leave behind. So the last brand I'm going to talk about today is Lilith France, or Lilith Paris, depending on who you're talking to. They're the same thing. So the thing I love about Lilith is an interesting case because it is French and whimsical. And I feel like you rarely see French designers really leaning into whimsy. You know, I expect that out of the Scandinavian countries. I expect that out of some American designers. Because fashion is such a thing in France, I feel like you see a lot of designers that take themselves so seriously, and like, respect. I have no problem with that, but I do love seeing a moment of whimsy. And Lilith to me always has a little bit of whimsy to the pieces, but it's definitely one of the legacy, well-known Lagenlook brands. Their linen pieces are gorgeous. Pretty much everything they make is gorgeous. And they also do some absolutely stunning knitwear that aren't necessarily in the Lagenlook silhouettes or in the Lagenlook feel, but still really beautiful stuff that's really well made. And again, it's a brand that people know and love. But in terms of retail price, you're going to see the least significant pieces start at about $100 to like $125 for like tank tops. And they go into like the $500-$600 range for jackets. Dresses hover between like $200 and $300. And on the resale market, you're going to see the resale prices start $40 to $50 from the less significant pieces, and it goes up from there. You'll see probably about $100, $150 for a dress. So again, another brand that's highly sought after, that can look very simplistic and can be very easy to go past if you're not specifically looking for that kind of stuff. And the final brand we're going to talk about here is items from any brand that have the Lagenlook aesthetic to them. You know, there are a lot of things from like Free People that have a Lagenlook silhouette or a Lagenlook aesthetic to them. You know, Eileen Fisher, which is more of like an elevated basics, but they do make things that have a little bit more of a Lagenlook silhouette to them or a Lagenlook feel to them. You know, I have found cotton pieces that have no tags whatsoever that I'm almost positive are like Amazon no-name brands that have that kind of cocoon silhouette to it. Those still sell pretty dang quick for like $20-$25. So if you are out of the bins and you find something that has one of the trademark style cues, you know, again, the cocoon shape, the oversized, chunky, funky pockets, that intentional shapelessness, or it's in, you know, linen or gauze or cotton or wool or, you know, one of the other finer fabrics. Pick it up and make sure that you're using the Lagenlook keywords. You know, Lagenlook, art to wear, artsy, art teacher, Lagom. And it's worth taking a look through your existing inventory. If Lagenlook is a new term for you, it's worth taking a look at your inventory inventory to see if there's anything that you already have listed that could be considered appropriate for a Lagenlook wardrobe. It is something that people search for quite a bit, so make sure that if you have something for which Lagenlook is applicable, you have that listed in there as a keyword. But that is it, guys. That is a quick deep dive into Lagenlook, a few tips on how to spot pieces between the textile and the style cues, a few of my favorite brands to keep my eyes out for. If you guys have ever found any of those super duper high-end Lagenlook pieces, let me know what you found. What did you find? What did you pay for it? What did you get for it? How fast did I sell them? You know my inquiring mind is dying to know. But hopefully this was helpful for you guys. Again, Lagenlook is just one of my favorite things to look for because, again, it's that lifestyle. It is not responsive to trends. It is always in demand. It'll have moments where it's more in demand, but it is always a baseline of high demand. And that, for a reseller, is solid gold. But guys, I always appreciate you choosing to spend a little bit of your precious time with me. It is an honor and a privilege. If you had fun, please consider leaving a like or a comment on this video. That helps me out so much with YouTube. Of course, don't forget to hit subscribe. I would love to have you along on this journey. Of course, if you want to give Vendoo a try, click the link in the description box down below. Thanks again to them for sponsoring their video and their continued partnership. But without further ado, guys, I hope you have the most beautiful weekend. Happy hunting, and I will see you all in the next one.